The views and opinions in the following program are those of the hosts and guests and do not reflect those of Ernest Smith or Ernest Smith Productions. This is ESP TV.
Good evening and welcome to ESP TV. My name is Karen Bryson, and this evening we're going to discuss Putin, you know who I'm talking about, however you want to pronounce his name, it all means the same. And I have three special guests here from three different branches of the armed forces, and this evening I want you all to help me welcome. Our first guest is Yeoman retired First Class Christine Williams. Christine was bitten by the acting bug at a very early age, and she used to make up scenes and perform them for her family and friends. And then Christine joined the military, the Army Reserves, for a year before she went active duty in the Navy, serving for 20 years. Thank you so much for your service, Christine. Christine continued writing and showcasing her talent while on deployment. She met Tanya, Poetic Justice, who opened up more opportunities for her to act in various shows. And then Christine went on to have her own shows, Table Talk, and then Live with Christine. And I was fortunate enough to be on Live with Christine with her as probably the warm-up person for her guests and everything, asking questions and getting everyone comfortable before the show began. So welcome, Christine. How are you?
Thank you, Karen, for that wonderful introduction. And you wasn't just the warm-up person. You was the life of the party. And I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, you look wonderful. And I haven't seen you in so long. It is so good to see you again. We're going to have to catch up real soon, okay?
Yes.
My second guest, I've also worked with this young man on a play. I'm talking about Alfred Caple Jr. He's 28 years old. He's a writer, an actor, an aspiring filmmaker, and a retired Marine Corps vet with the rank of corporal. Alfred, thank you for your service as well. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alfred joined the Corps after graduating from high school, and once his service was completed, he went on to begin his dream of being a working actor, a published author, and guess what? He owns his own production company. You and I are going to have to get together because there's some things I need to do too, so keep me in mind, okay?
Working on it. I'm working on it still.
I know that's right. My last guest sitting next to me is a retired Army Master Sergeant E8 for 25 years in the military. Welcome, Master Sergeant William Davis.
Thank you. Thank you.
He served in several combat missions in Iraq, Mogadishu, Haiti, Afghanistan. He's also a Ranger Airborne Air Assault Qualified and Special Forces. Oh, this is a dangerous man sitting next to me over here, you all.
No, I'm calm.
Master Sergeant Davis has done so many things that we're going to get everyone's opinions and views on what they think about the Ukraine. I have so many questions I want to ask you all, and my first is, do you all think that there's something mentally wrong with Putin because he's targeting innocent people, and they're not just collateral damage. He's targeting children and hospitals and families, and this is just getting ridiculous. I'm going to start with you since you're sitting next to me, Master Sergeant. What do you think?
He does have a issue with his mindset. When you're a dictator, the first thing you go after is children, women, men that are, how you say, their insecurities, and that's what he is basing his situation on. He's going after women and children first, which, if you look at it and go back to Adolf Hitler, the same thing he did when World War II started. He went after the women and children first.
So if you destroy the family, then the men will fall in line type thing?
It's if you destroy the family,
Okay.
the men will just fall to their knees. And if you, a real man, if you touch one of their children or you touch their wives,
Right.
they're going to just break down. So that's what we were built for, is to protect our family. But if you go after them first, I mean, honestly, it's sad the way he's doing things, and it's sad the way it's going about. I just saw the pregnant woman. She was the first picture they showed,
Right.
and she recently passed away, and the child.
I saw that. That was
And-
horrible.
It
Well, you would think that if he's going after the women and children, thinking it's going to break the men, it would only make the men that much more angry to fight and defeat him. Yeoman Williams, what do you think about this?
Well, do I believe there's something wrong with him mentally, as in, a mental? No. I think he's a dictator, as the previous speaker said. I believe he's a dictator. I believe he's a bully. And I believe he's going after the people that's weaker than him so that he can gain control over more of the people. Because, like the previous caller said, when you attack the women and the children, you kind of like get the men in a predicament. But the predicament is not to make them surrender due to him. The predicament is to make them surrender from the pressures of the women and the children. We don't want to die. We don't want you to die. And to bring them under control with that kind of control tactic. I could be wrong. It could be something wrong with him. I do see a lot of Hitler in that. But at the same time, I just think he's a bully.
Okay. Corporal, do you agree with this, or what is your view on this?
I do, really. I was actually watching a video. I was watching the news today. This lady was talking about how there was a rocket that hit her apartment, and there were like 10 people that just disappeared.
Wow.
And like it takes a really mentally ill person to straight up just deny that you're not attacking civilians when the evidence is clearly there. The whole world can see it. I'm not gonna like harp too much on it, but yeah, I mainly agree with it. With him on that. It's a terrible thing to see, really.
I agree, absolutely. He really wants to be a czar, it seems like, and just take over. I understand that the USA doesn't want to get involved as far as limiting his airspace. To me, it just seems like, and I could be wrong since all three of you all are in or have been in the service, that just placing sanctions on him and limiting the billionaires that have all the control of money and various things that are going on, it's basically a slap on the wrist to him, because it's not seeming to get through and he's still going forward with what he's doing. At some point, Yeoman, do you think that we're going to end up having to invade cut off the airspace for him and we're going to get involved?
I'm really not sure if they're going to do that, because at this point in time, the U.S. is trying not to overstep their boundaries, so to speak. So we're following the lead of the UN. Now, if the UN make that determination, then yes, we are out of there. We're going to do what we need to do. It's easy to get Navy ships over there and start lighting them up. But us controlling their airspace and things of that nature, it's easy for us to do. I just believe we're going to wait on the direction of the UN on what they decide to do.
Corporal, let me ask you this. Because the people, when you're in the service, you have to follow orders, regardless of what your thought pattern is. But if you know something in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit is wrong, do you still have to follow that order? Or can you, even though you're going to probably have consequences, can you not follow and kill innocent people?
So, in a case like this, where, as far as, you know why Ukraine is fighting, they're defending their home. But in Russia, there's the reason why they're invading Ukraine is kind of unclear to them. Putin, you don't really know what's going on in his head. So in this case, you could disobey that order, but over there, the consequences of that could be depending on. I'm trying to pick my words carefully, but because it's a really tense situation over there, because you seeing how Putin is and not really caring that he's killing innocent people. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't think twice about doing the same to someone who disobeys an order, especially with what he's doing now. Whereas if you disobey an order and over here, you might get NJP restriction in your room and your barracks, but over there, especially how with it's war, you could be gambling with your life basically. So, you can make that choice, but you gotta be prepared for what happens after that.
The consequences. Master Sergeant, what do you think?
Number one, Ukraine is part of the NATO, and also they're part of the European Union.
Okay.
So we can help them, but if you look before this whole situation happened, Trump has always been backing Putin on what he was doing. And he couldn't even put our military in that same pattern. If we go out as a United States and we're in combat and we kill an innocent child, an innocent woman, an innocent man, no, we have to come up front for that.
Right.
The UMCJ,
we're held accountable. Yes.
We're held accountable for that. I know plenty of soldiers that made mistakes and did that. And yes, they were held accountable. Now, when we look at Putin, he already thinks he's got the backing of the United States because of our former president.
Right.
So now he thinks he can do what he wants. But under every circumstance we look at, Ukraine is under the European Union and part of NATO. And we have to back that. If you look at our history, Russia is not part of NATO.
No, they aren't.
So if we go to the United Nations, Russia has to deal with that whole NATO committee.
Well, as far as Ukraine being part of NATO and all of the other countries involved that are unified within that sector, we're all supplying the Ukraine with, I don't know about manpower, but I know we're giving them weapons and everything else to help fight. And I think if we can go that far without even putting our own boots on the ground, we're going to eventually get drawn into this, because if the Ukraine ends up falling, as you said, 45 had a lot to do with this, and had he still been in power, it would be a whole nother scenario going on, and
Exactly.
that's scary to think of. At this point, do you all think that Putin will use Britney Griner as a pawn, because she is, well, basically a superstar, an athlete? Yeoman, what do you think? Do you think he's going to end up using her as a pawn? Because supposedly she's still supposed to stay there in captivity, and who knows if they're going to even torture her or whatever until like May 19th. What do you think?
Well, first, can I correct something I said? I said that we will follow the direction of the UN, and I actually meant NATO. That we will follow the direction of NATO. UN is who is going to decide about these charges against Putin, and NATO is leading the charge on how we are going to defend Ukraine. But do I believe they're going to use Britney as a pawn? I believe they're going to use her in negotiations as a way to get the opportunity to say, hey, you do this for me, I'll do that for you. I do believe they're going to make an example out of her, and they're going to use the fact that we're in this situation to enhance all their tactics that they use on her. And is it fair? No, it's not fair. But when President Biden said for all civilians and all federal government to leave Ukraine and Russia, we all should have left. I do believe that.
But they had already picked her up with either bogus drug charges, or maybe she did have joint. We will never know.
Well, no, it's not a joint. She had a vape. She had a vape.
Oh, a vapor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Okay, Corporal, if they do use Britney as a pawn, we don't deal with terrorists, which means she may end up being collateral damage and having to give her life. What do you think about that?
That's wow.
Exactly. That's even scary to think about. Do you want to think on that?
It is. It really is.
Sergeant, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I've heard about it. I know about it. Not personally, but yes, it was a vape with CBD oil,
Okay.
which is perfectly legal in the United States,
But not there.
but not there. But the problem is, if we look back in 1996, there was a NBC or CBS. I don't know what network he worked for.
Okay.
It was a cameraman that went over there, and they held him for 565 days.
Oh my.
And they interviewed him today and asked, do you think it's going to be a problem with her and what's going on with Ukraine, the United States, and Russia? And his response was, I believe she'll never come home.
I honestly feel that in my spirit as well, but we'll have to play this out and see what happens. Yeoman, let me add a caveat to this by saying that it wasn't just simply because of the vapor. There are strict rules against, well, lesbianism or homosexuality or anything else over there in Russia, and that was one of the biggest things that they're holding her for. I think the vapor was inconsequential to the first part of this. They can technically, because she was in their country, whether they would have had to catch her doing something other than the fact that she's saying that she's homosexual. What do you think about that?
Well, being in the military, going to numerous countries and destinations, and being on land, we have to abide by their rules. When you're in the Middle East, you do not go in the same parlor or salon or whatever as the males. Like the males can't come into the female parlor. It doesn't matter what we have going on at home. We have to be kept abreast of the rules of the countries we're going into, and we have to abide by those rules. And before attending or signing the agreement to play over there and things like that, all of these rules and regulations should have been clearly directed to this young lady so she wouldn't be putting herself in danger. And now she's in danger because not only did she break their rules according to them, but now we're in a hostile environment and she has become, as you said, collateral damage. So I would say to anyone that is going to another country, before you go to that country, everything that is free to do in the United States is not free to do in other countries. Right. And we have to know the rules before we go there.
Corporal, let me ask you this then, since you are also athletic. Just your own personal opinion. Why didn't she just leave with the rest of the team?
Why didn't she leave?
Yeah, when the team was leaving, why wasn't she part of that and leaving with the team? She wasn't over there by herself.
I couldn't tell you why. That's the first thing I would have done. The first thing I would have done was to leave. I'm sorry, sorry I got messed up. But yeah, no, the first thing I would have done was to leave. You know, when you're in other countries, you gotta pay attention to the culture over there, how people react to certain things. You have to be mindful of your surroundings, and you know, there really shouldn't have been a reason why she stayed. She should have left with her people right when they did.
Why would the coach have left her, though? I don't understand that. Wouldn't the coach have had to stay or figure out some way to get all of his people home together? You don't leave a man behind. I mean, I know that's, prevalent when you're in the service, but wouldn't it stand true for someone in the sports, Master Sergeant?
Well, it wasn't that she was leaving her team in the coach. She played for a Russian team.
Oh, okay. See, I'm trying to get all my information
she
here.
She played for the WNBA. The female sport is they play in two different leagues.
Okay.
And she played for a Russian team, and she was on her way over to start her season.
Oh my, okay.
So it wasn't the United States left her over there.
Okay.
She played for a Russian team, and she went over, and she had a vape, and it had what they consider contraband.
Okay.
Where we don't consider contraband, so she didn't know. She really didn't know about the juices she had in her vape. And with CBD oil, you can get it offline all the time. And she just went over there. She didn't go over there with a pound of weed or drugs or anything. Her vapes had CBD oil. And that was just an excuse because she's been playing for this league for almost 4 years.
So she's pretty much aware of the rules and regulations that are associated with them. Yes.
And since this thing with Ukraine went on, I really personally think they're piggybacking it to make her an example.
Goodness. Well, as I indicated earlier, President Biden's in a tough position because, as I said, we do not negotiate with terrorists and they cannot use her. So unless the special forces or something like that just swoops in and, gets her out of there, she may be stuck.
Well, the way they said they extended it to May 19th.
Right.
And that's how they considered their arrest order. But when I was in the military, being that I was a Special Forces soldier, we're on like a 15, 20-minute window. That means if they call us in 15, 20 minutes, we're on a plane, we're gone.
Okay.
For a situation like this, no, they're going to look a little harder. Because if we're going in there, not only if we're going to affect Ukraine, but then we're going to affect us.
Right. Okay.
So they're going to look at it in a situation where, okay, we're going to do the legal issue and get her home, which I hope happens.
Right.
And like that I think it was a cameraman. I can't remember his name, but I know in 1996, he spent 566 days in a Russian jail.
I vaguely remember that. That was so long ago.
Yeah, and I don't know what he did or what happened, but he responded on the situation, and he said it doesn't look good for her. And for him to say that,
He knows.
yeah, I'm seriously worried about her.
Let me move on a little bit. Master Sergeant has obviously seen some combat experience with the places that he's had to, was his deployment. Yeoman and Corporal, have either one of you all seen any combat, or were you in dangerous situations? Yeoman, I'll start with you.
Well, no, ma'am. I was an administrator. I've been in dangerous places, but I've never been in danger.
Amen.
I've been blessed.
Every day. Corporal, what about you?
No, I was in supply. My first duty station was in Okinawa, Japan. I was sent to the Philippines twice. There are terrorist groups around there, and we had briefs before we landed there. But no, I had blessed not to really have seen combat.
Well, I'm glad you didn't either. Which leads me to a section whereas even though neither one of you all have seen combat experience, and Master Sergeant Davis has, okay, how can I put this? Accidents happen all the time. We have accidents that occur where they're told to be accidents. Over in the UK, accidents occur. Australia has had accidents occur. What are we waiting on for an accident to occur over in Russia? This is your own opinions. Would either one of you like to respond to that?
I would love to.
Okay, we can start with you, Master.
And I'm going to tell you, there'll never, ever be an accident in Russia, because they're so structured. They're so put together. You're not going to get in Russia.
I doubt that. We can do anything we choose to do. We found Saddam down in a hole. Wasn't that him, or was that
No, that was Saddam. We found him in a well.
Thank you. So it can
Somebody
be done.
walked by, fell in a well. It can be done, but Russia is so structured. And I'll just say this: 45 killed that by being. I'm such a friend with Putin, and I admire what he does. I actually saw something today where Arnold Schwarzenegger said he thinks of him as a hero.
Schwarzenegger thinks he's a hero, or 45 thinks he's a hero?
No, Schwarzenegger thought Putin's a hero. And
Oh, my.
what he does, we are so structured on. Perfect example. Look at our gas prices right now. We done expended we went through Saudi Arabia,
Right.
We went through Iraq.
Okay.
And now we're dealing with Russia. Look at how our gas prices are going up. We done expended all those countries where nobody wants to even give us the oil we need.
You know what? Go on.
Our prices are still going up.
Yes, they are. Yeoman and Corporal, I want you all to weigh in on what you think about this accident issue first before we move on to the prices of gas. Corporal, what do you think?
I'd say accidents.
Your own opinion. I mean, it doesn't have to be factual. We're just giving our own personal opinions here.
I don't know. I mean, these are the same guys that train with bears on a daily basis for fun. I'm not sure about any accidents.
So you're saying that the United States cannot effectuate a little accident somewhere. Is that what you're telling me? That we do not do that?
It'd be really tough. It'd be really tough.
It'd be really tough, but not impossible.
I don't know. I don't really think it would be worth, the outcome of what that could be. Especially with, who's running in Russia right now.
Wouldn't someone else be placed in a position to lead the country, though?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, should an accident befall him that we would know nothing about, that's in quotes, wouldn't someone else be placed in government to rule the people? Perhaps someone, with a little more sanity?
Possibly. Like I said, I can't really. That's something you can't really say for sure. Just we don't really know who might want to take that role. If it comes vacant, could be somebody worse, could be somebody better. That's kind of too tough to call, really.
Yeoman, let me ask you this. Normally, the United States, and I'm going to say this, we are at times bullies telling other countries how to run their democracy and everything else, and we can't take care of our own backyard and get things straight over here. We normally do not get involved in anything unless there's something in it for us. At this point, do you think that may be one of the determining factors while we're still waiting with NATO to decide whether or not we're going to get involved in this, Yeoman?
No, I don't. I believe we're not getting involved because of political reasons. And I believe those political reasons are the allies we have are not fully on board with us going into Russia. That's why we're waiting on NATO. And the allies that Russia has are some of our allies, or quote unquote allies, and they're not on board with us going into Russia as well. I believe we have to tread carefully before we make that move. The difference between Saddam Hussein and Putin is that there was an actual attack on in our country, on our land, with our planes against us. So we were able to declare war and go out there and do what needed to be done and chase the terrorists. Whereas, and Saddam was, what George Bush called them, the axes of evil or whatever. And we had reason for that. Right now, Russia has a reason that they're supposedly defending their border, and part of that reason is because they don't want NATO at their border. So he feels as if NATO comes and allows Ukraine to join, and they become a part of their border, they get closer to taking assets from them. So we don't want to put on the hat of bully right now, because Putin has it's an irrational point, but he has a point about why he doesn't want this to happen.
Wow. Master Sergeant, did you want to weigh in on that? You're shaking your head over here. What do you have to say?
Well, you see what the United States did. We cut all ties with Russia in the past week.
Right.
No trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No oil. No nothing. We've cut all the ties with Russia. Ukraine is a NATO country. We're part of a NATO. They're our allies, so we have to support them.
Right.
Whether it looks like it or not, we are supporting Ukraine. And with the way we cut it off, I was looking at a news report today. They said that their economy is going to drop over 45% in less than a week. Russia.
But he doesn't care that his people
And he
are
doesn't.
suffering.
So what does that tell you about him? If he doesn't care about his own country, we've cut everything. The Chinese, Japan, Asian countries, they've cut their ties with Russia. Russia is going to drop.
I disagree with that because I know friendships and allies or whatever, it's a political chess game. And in World War II, China was our ally against Japan. But now China is no longer our ally. Putin has contacted them for weapons and boots on the ground. So if China assists them, then that is going to drag everyone else into the war. Let me ask Corporal. Corporal, do you understand that? Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, I was actually reading something. I was watching the news today when and they were talking about whether or not Russia really had the means of taking the capital of Ukraine, but not having the resources to hold it.
Okay.
Again, because of the sanctions and everybody cutting Russia off from basically everything. Russia actually they legalized piracy because of them getting cut off from everything. And I don't really see China hopping in to help them either, because that's just going to cause more. Yeah, there's enough of a supply shortage for everything now.
Well, he must have a feeling that they could help him if he actually went to China and said, look, I need your help. So there must be some kind of connection there that he believes that they will assist him.
I don't know. They might not think it's worth it. I don't see Russia really holding on to it, really.
Okay. Yeoman, what do you think? What are your views on this? I know these are some deep questions, but somebody has to ask them, and we're all giving our opinions as if we're sitting around the living room just chatting, giving our own opinions. It doesn't have to be fact, but we're giving our opinion.
Ask the question again.
That's this topic.
The question was, Putin has asked China to weigh in and help them with arms and put boots on the ground. In World War II, China was our ally. Now, with the crazy dictator over there, we're no longer allies with China. We're now associated with Japan, which is interesting. I know friendships and allies and things change like a chess game, I said earlier. So do you think it's going to be advantageous for China to side with Putin and, I guess, get this ball rolling for them?
I don't believe it'll be an advantage overall. I think it'll be a temporary advantage because they do have ties with Iran and other countries that they have better relationships with than they have with the United States. But I don't see them actively getting involved if the United States stay out of it. Now, if the United States go in without NATO, I do believe that will cause China to then step in and join sides with Putin.
If China did step in and side with them, Yomi, I'm going to stay with you for a second. Would we then be have the cause to place sanctions on China as well? I'm going to ask each of you all the same question, but since you're talking first, I just want to stay with you for a moment.
Well, we learned from 45, or Trump, however you want to refer to him. We learned from him how placing sanctions on China really does not work in our best interest. So if they were to go to war and side with Russia as we are siding with Ukraine, it'll be a bad thing. It'll be just all the way downhill to even attempt to apply sanctions on them, because they will in turn sanction us as well. And we trade so much with each other.
Heavily, yes. Yes, very heavily, we do. Master Sergeant.
I believe China will stick with us.
You think so?
I believe
even with
so.
Him?
Even with everything that's going on.
Okay.
They've already seen that Putin has not come through for what he promised China. And this was 4 years ago. So now, China's like, okay, we don't have the best thing with the United States, but they're going to back us. As a NATO country with Ukraine, the United States has to back Ukraine. And they have to support that situation, their European Union, as Ukraine is. We got all our trades going. When when 45 was in office,
Okay.
he tried to cut all trades with China.
Right.
And picked up for Russia. So now, since Biden came in, he's picked up trades with China. But we cut all our ties with Russia.
But wasn't that because 45 had a business deal or something he was going on with over there in Russia that he was trying to institute, so he needed Putin to side with him? And
if we really look at it, that's why he fought so hard to get reelected and cause all these fake things and saying the vote was wrong and this happened and the voter fraud, this and that. He fought that hard. And I just believe what's going on now has something to do with 45.
I believe it as well, yes.
We have not figured it out yet.
There's enough people that worked with him in his administration that I'm sure they will finally, their light bulbs will come on.
Right.
Corporal, let me ask you this. We all use gas. Okay, we know we got it from the Saudi Arabians. We're dealing with Russia. I think that because of who the United States are, who we are, we have stockpiled our own because we had our own oil wells and everything else. So it was said on the news, and I heard that this morning, that the gas prices over the holidays, I guess that's during the summer, are going to be lowered so that the economy can help, everyone do what they need to do, travel-wise, vacations and everything, but then pick up again in the fall as far as the prices gradually raise again. Doesn't that tell you that we're going to be using our own resources at that point? Corporal, I'm talking to you.
Do you think we'll be using our own resources at that point?
We're using them. We're going to be able to lower the prices and everything. And I think we're stockpiling our own oil and everything. So if we can afford to lower the prices during the summertime and then raise them gradually during the fall, we have our own resources, don't you think?
I don't doubt that we do. I'm pretty sure we do. But as far as the gas prices, I do agree. I agree with that. I know I know we have our own but I don't know much about the whole who actually runs the whole gas prices thing, but
I know we have pipelines running with oil from Canada and Iceland and some other places, so it's not like we don't have our own. I think we're just stockpiling it for a rainy day, and this is the rainy day.
And that might actually have something to do with some of the other pipelines that are actually being built around the U.S. as well. I've heard about that recently. I know that's been a thing with a lot of Native Americans have been protesting about the pipelines being built through.
Absolutely.
Basically where their property. So I'm not gonna say I have anything to do with that, but I feel like it kind of does.
Okay. Yeoman, do you want to weigh in on that, or shall we move on?
Well, I can share that I do believe that we're not trying to. What was the term they used years ago? They put out that we'll use a certain amount of our own resources as to not deplete what we have. So that I do believe that's why we're not utilizing as much of our resources as we possibly can. We're going to negotiate with other countries to, utilize their resources because their resources are more fruitful than ours.
Okay. Well, I can see that side of the coin as well. Do you want to weigh in on this too, Master Sergeant?
Yeah, you remember a couple of months ago, maybe about 3-4 months ago, when Russia hit our pipelines.
Oh, yeah.
You remember? And they
yes.
hacked the system.
Yes, they did.
And what did it affect? Virginia, Maryland, up that East Coast line.
Yes, it did. Absolutely.
Russia was a part of that. I mean, you see, we do have the resources. Can we afford it? I don't think the United States can afford to do their own country. If that makes sense. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. Okay.
But that same pipeline that comes through Canada, comes through Alaska.
Right.
Russia hit it. Do you remember how we just thought there was no gas coming for almost a week? Every gas station in the Hamptons Road area ran out of gas.
Yes, they did. Yes, indeed.
And that was hacked by the Russian government. Or they won't say it was the Russian government. They said it was a Russian person. So if you put that in the same category, I mean,
Right.
think about it.
Absolutely. These are difficult questions that I'm posing to our panel, but these are questions that you need to raise in your own households, because I believe that Americans have been so jaded to see destruction and blood and guts and everything that we see it in movies and TV and everything else, that it seems like we're saying, oh, poor Ukraine, and you're okay, but it's happening over there. It's not affecting me other than, I have bills to pay over here. It's affecting my gas over here. I don't have a job. I can't pay my rent or whatever. And they're not totally concerned with how something way over there in another country actually is affecting us, our daily lives. Now, my point in all this is to say that basically, I don't understand how we can give billions of dollars to another country to help them and then claim we don't have it to help feed our own people over here, to house our own people over here, to get things organized and take care of our own backyard. And that's always been a concern and aggravated the mess out of me, and that's saying it politely. Go on.
I'd say this. It all started with, and if you look back in history, it all started with Ronald Reagan.
Reaganomics.
When he came into office, he thought he'd get his wife to say, we're going to fight drugs. But then at the war on drugs, remember? And where it came up was, who was his vice president? George Bush Sr.
Right.
People did not know that the Bushes owned the biggest oil. They were from Connecticut, but then they took place in Texas. They owned so many of the oil refineries throughout Texas. When he took office, name the war that happened.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right.
After he took office, he served one term. Bill Clinton came in. We didn't have one war.
No, we didn't.
When his son came in,
it went back. It reverted.
So all this fighting over oil started with Reagan, the Bushes, and now we're dealing with what
Russia.
45 and Putin is doing.
Well, as I said earlier, we don't get involved unless we're getting something out of the deal. Yeoman, let me ask you this. We have outsourced so many things to other countries in order to supply us because it's supposedly cheaper. Why can't we bring this stuff back in-house and take care of our own? Is that an impossibility? I mean, did they feed you all that garbage too in the service saying, you know, everything's hunky-dory, you know, we're going to do it this way? What do you think?
Well, in the military, we don't, I know in the Navy, we're not discussing too much politics when it comes to the assignments we're being sent on and things of that nature. So that's not a topic of conversation. Personally, we may have those conversations, but that's not what our leadership is putting out to us. But what I do learn, and through reading and researching and all of that, is we feel the need to have trades with other countries to keep allies and friendships going.
Yes.
If we become an America-only country, then what keeps us operating and making that defense money and being active in other countries? They don't want us there, but they tolerate us because of what we bring to them. Does that, you know, make sense? So it's
when we could keep more things in-house. I can see outsourcing some things, but my gosh, technology, food, everything, you know, we're getting from other places.
But she's right about when we're in the military, we're not allowed to discuss any of this stuff.
You're not allowed to have an opinion.
We can have an opinion, but that opinion can get you kicked out.
Oh my.
Or you don't get rank. So whoever's your chief of staff, or whatever they think, that's it. And like she said, if we talk amongst ourselves, it's fine. But if we had an opinion, and I think both of them would say, being in the military, we really don't have an opinion. Whatever the president says, we have to abide by. Whatever your joint chief of staff says, we have to abide by. We can't give an opinion.
Oh my gosh, I understand both sides of that as well. Corporal, were you ever given an order and totally knew that it was against something that needed to be going on, with, even though you were in supplies, and disagree with it? Were you able to talk to your superior and say, no, I think it should be done this way, or I disagree with you? Were you allowed to say anything?
In my case, yes, because yes and no. Depends. It just really depends on who the officer might have been. But for the most part, yeah, if there was something wrong, or if I felt like, if I disagree with something, I would be able to give my opinion. But for the most part, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter. Still gotta do it. So, but yeah.
Wow. You all all are placed in a difficult situation being in the service, because I guess in order for everyone to be on one accord, then you all have to follow the rules that are set before you and not question it, whether it leads you into battle and you're going to fail because of horrible orders or what have you. This has affected everyone over here singularly as well as jointly, because so much has gone on. Let me ask you all this, because I'm going down another road with this. I was a little confused when a lot of servicemen chose not to get vaccinated for whatever reason. My question, and we only have a few minutes, so I want to get each of you all's opinion. We have about 5 minutes left. Is the fact that when you join the service, whatever branch, you all don't question all the vaccines they give you, everything they do for you and to you. So why question getting the vaccine against COVID now? Who can I start with? Anybody want to start?
I'll just say this. I deployed, I went to combat.
Okay.
I went to over 20 different countries. And each time I left,
You had to get a vaccination.
I had at least 5 shots.
And you didn't question it, did you?
Did not question it. Did I question the COVID? No. I went, when the VA said, hey, we're going to give you a free shot. Okay. I took it. And I'm just saying this, my wife caught COVID.
Because she didn't take the shot?
She didn't take the shot. She caught COVID. I laid next to her the whole entire time. My kids, I isolated out the room. I never got it.
Does she regret that decision?
Got it.
No, she didn't regret.
She doesn't regret it. My wife is the vegan,
Oh, okay.
But she caught it the whole 2 weeks. I laid next to her, and I never caught it. Now, one of them shots they gave me when I went overseas or where I went, something worked, and I'm not the only vet that said this.
Okay. That's one positive for that. Yeoman, what are your thoughts on that one? As far as servicemen not wanting to take the shot even after everything else?
I think that there was a lot of propaganda. A lot of propaganda went out where it was a hoax, or it was bad for Black people, or it was good for these people, so on and so forth. But once they began to release the science behind it, that I don't know about the Master Sergeant, but I was in the Middle East when SARS, or that first episode of SARS, when you had to get your temperature taken before you can get on a plane. Okay. I was out there. So the science says that is when they had to do that worldwide. That is when they began doing the research for the vaccine. So that was almost 20 years ago, 2003. Here we are in 2020, 2021, and yes, they got around to a vaccine that worked against SARS, because COVID is SARS. But so many people are not educated about these things. They don't know, so they question it.
Right. Okay. And the fact that so many things were tested against people of color, so I can understand that side of it too. I chose to finally get vaccinated only because Caucasians were getting it. I said, if they're going to get it and we're getting the same shot they're getting, then it must be all right. We only have like a minute or so left. Corporal, I want your opinion on it too, as far as why you think servicemen chose not to do it when you all get all the other shots and everything else when you get in the service and don't question it. So why question it now?
I agree. It is propaganda. Just the boot camp alone, all the shots you have to get. I went to Okinawa. I had to get my smallpox shot. Is a whole bunch of shots in your arm, and I just believe this. No, I didn't question it because I had to go. I had to do it. So I think it's just propaganda.
Wow, you would think that with everybody dropping dead, that alone would show that it's not propaganda, that it's, people. It's horrible, and that's a whole nother discussion. Everyone in listening audience, please do your own research. I want to thank Master Sergeant Davis, Yeoman Williams, and Corporal How do you pronounce your last name, Al?
Caple. You forgot already? It's Caple.
I didn't know if I was pronouncing it correctly or, and you never said anything, so.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it happens. It happens enough where it's fine.
No, but I want to call you correctly. I want to thank our listening audience for being a part of this discussion, and I hope you have your own discussions at home. This has been ESP TV. My name is Karen Bryson, and as always, be a blessing to at least one other person. Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. She said something that triggered me. That Sarge.